Life is slowly starting to move back towards a pre-pandemic normal, but unfortunately for some, that means a return to the harsh reality of non-payment evictions. Bernalillo County ended its moratorium on April 1st for the first time since the beginning of the pandemic. Let's bring in the Line Opinion panel to talk about the impacts of this. We're still waiting to see what landlords do in the next few weeks, but we know there were a few dozen eviction hearings scheduled at Metro Court in Albuquerque. Now that's according to Source New Mexico. Here's the question. Are landlords, Sophie, going to rush to evict tenants now that this stay is over?
Well, I think it's worth noting that while evictions have resumed in some parts of the state, there is kind of a rolling resuming. So each month on the 1st, we're going to see more parts of the state where the moratorium is lifted. We haven't, from what I understand, seen a mad rush to the courthouse. That doesn't mean that it won't happen. And it may be that in some areas of the state that the backlog, for lack of a better way to put it, is more intense than in others. It's hard to say right now. But, actually, I will say one of my fellow panelists gave a great interview recently about this, and talking about how much of the eviction backlog may have already kind of run its course. It may have gone through the system because there were other ways to remove tenants, even if you couldn't do it on the basis of non-payment. So I'm going to kind of throw that to Serge.
Serge, go ahead. That's an interesting little point there.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's a mistake to say, a misapprehension that I think a lot of folks have, that there were no evictions over the past 2 years. There were thousands and thousands of evictions. They just weren't for non-payment in court, right? You could get evicted for violating the lease in some other way. Or the landlord could just say, I'm not renewing this lease, and you have to get out, right? How many thousands and thousands of New Mexico families lost their homes because of that? We don't know. They never went through the eviction courts because as soon as the Supreme Court stepped in, which, by the way, more power to them, I appreciate their focus on this, right? It no longer became this efficient eviction machine, and so you have to look to other avenues. But if we're saying, the dam is about to come down and there'll be a wave, I don't think that's the case, because there's been a lot of leaks in the dam over it's more like a fence for the last couple of years, that has allowed anybody who has a little bit of savvy to get rid of just about any tenant they wanted to get rid of, for any, even if they had to sort of disguise the actual rationale.
Right. Hey, Serge, let me stay with you on this. It's kind of a big deal. The U.S. Attorney General, Merrick Garland, recognized your department, UNM Law, for its rapid response addressing the pandemic housing and eviction crisis. Can you tell us what that honor was like, and what you, your colleagues, and your students, what did you guys do to help keep people housed?
I mean, we were really honored to get that recognition, and really excited that there's been so much focus recently on housing stability and the role that lawyers and law professionals and law students can play in helping people remain stably housed. I'll be honest, we were doing this before the pandemic. We're going to keep doing this, right? We sort of increased our efforts to try to work with folks around the state around getting folks access to the assistance that there is, and making policy change. But housing was there was a housing crisis before the pandemic and post-pandemic, and we're still working on it. But it's always nice to have your work recognized. And my amazing students have been, throwing themselves into this from day one of them hearing about this, but especially, on the first couple weeks of this pandemic, they were like, what can we do? How can we do it? And the cast has changed, but the spirit of diving in and trying to make sure folks don't lose their housing in this time hasn't let up. I've been really proud of them.
Good for you. Congrats to you and all your colleagues and the students on that. That's kind of a big deal. Good for you guys. Yeah, absolutely. Justine, a question here. For those people who are facing eviction, there is federal assistance available. We all know that. And we all know if it goes unused, the state has to return that money to Washington. So my beef here is there enough knowledge about what's out there? Should the city or state be doing more to let people know that there is help available? Because honestly, you look around Albuquerque, you really don't see a whole lot of paid sort of notices saying, hey, if you need help, come over here. Should we be doing
Yeah,
more?
I mean, it's a little hard to know. And as Serge says, this is not a new phenomenon. It sounds like, and the hope is that maybe we've become a little bit more efficient at connecting people who need resources with resources. Maybe the government has gotten better at targeting folks who really do need help. Anecdotally, in my practice, I think that's true. I mean, I have had clients who have not had too much trouble getting assistance. And I think, and there's a report in the Journal today about funding going out. I guess it's a little too early to tell how much better we've gotten at it. But I do think, COVID has thrown a spotlight on this longstanding problem and difficulty. And I guess I hope that rather than just create a new entitlement for the sake of creating it or throwing money at the problem, that we are getting better at really identifying the best way to get resources to people. A moratorium is one thing, but actually figuring out how to help people get stabilized who need it. And people like, Serge's clinic and the lawyers and students and other folks who work on this and the experts in this area, I hope are getting heard, when it comes to the legislative fixes and changes, because the money needs to get in the right hands.
That's right.
If we're going to be spending it.
That's right. The idea of going back to Washington just gives me a stomach ache. We got to spend this money. Hey, Sophie, interesting. I'm pretty sure you know about this. There's an Albuquerque advocacy group calling for rent control. It's an amazing situation when you think about it here in Albuquerque. Should cities in New Mexico consider such drastic action? I mean, considering other rising costs?
Okay. So I will say rent control can be quite complex. And so I would say it's not a quick fix. It's not even necessarily a sure thing. We see in cities that have had rent control for a long time, New York City comes to mind almost immediately, that sometimes there are some unintended consequences. But given the scope of the problem, it seems to me that all options should be investigated and should be on the table. And that certainly is one of them.
Yeah. Serge, let me get you a cut on that rent control. I'm dying to hear your opinion on this subject.
Well, the first thing you'll hear when you talk about it is people say there's a state law that prohibits any municipality from implementing it.
That's right.
I've analyzed that, and I think that that's actually not consistent with the home rule provisions of our Constitution. And so I think, a municipality that wanted to, like Sophie was saying, try it and see, shouldn't take any options off the table, right? Rent control, it is, often a dirty word in some quarters, and certainly has had, you can, whatever position you want to support, you can point to evidence to that effect. But I do think it can be an effective tool to keep people, to stop destabilizing housing and allow folks to be able to stay where they are, build up, some political capital for where they are, have some stability that helps them with work, education, and whatnot, and to sort of decommodify housing a little bit. And so I'm certainly intrigued by it. I do know that it would be a massive, massive battle that anyone wanted to try it, but I do believe that there's legal cover for it, despite what our state statutes say about that.
See, that would be an interesting change of events, though. I think I've had this discussion with folks, and folks are convinced that the state would not allow it. That would be a very interesting change if your research shows otherwise. That's fascinating. Justine, let me kind of jump to you for a quick second here. Not just a New Mexico problem. Our state, just below the national average in its share of cost-burdened renters who devote about a third of their income to housing costs. Some people, it's just not sustainable to have so much of our money going to keeping a roof over our head. Is there a federal solution to this housing problem that kind of covers that a little bit?
No, I mean, it's a complicated problem that relates to our tax burden and the cost of living here. And, temporary Band-Aids, which never remain temporary, like rent control and changing the regulatory landscape, will only make it more complicated and destabilize housing in the long term. So no, I don't think there's a federal solution. I think we need to look back at all the traditional, ways to let the market work, to permit job growth, and to deal with the social factors and influences that make it hard for folks to make it. I mean, it's a long list.
Yeah.
But no, the feds can't fix that problem.
It's complicated. That's right. That's right. It's equally. Go ahead, Serge. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, I 100% agree with Justine that there has to be a complex response to this. And like, rent control is probably a short-term solution, and I understand what Justine's saying, right? Mm-hmm. Short-term is a myth in many cases, but that goes hand in hand with creating more housing, creating more public housing, creating more access to rental assistance and whatnot. And that no one thing is, there's no such thing as a silver bullet. It requires a complex, sustained, thoughtful, innovative approach to it. But I do think that there are ways to approach it. I've articulated thoughts and plans many times.
Sure.
And yet, as of yet, no one's followed up, taken me up on it.
Well, you're so far ahead of the game, man. We're catching up to you. That's what's going on here. Thanks again to our line panel, as always, this week. Be sure to let us know what you think about any of the topics the line covered on our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram pages.